Hi, this is Brad Swanson with Agile 42, and today I'm talking about the top 10 failure modes in Agile transformations. We'll be counting down, telling you what not to do, and a few hints about how you can avoid these pitfalls. So our first one in our countdown, number 10. There's a new sheriff in town, new boss that comes into the organization and might turn things upside down a little bit, disrupt progress that you've already made. The new person doesn't necessarily know where you're at in that journey, and this is a really tough thing to overcome. So a couple things you can do, and it takes a while to get there, but you need to have a strong Agile culture to start with. And that starts with the hiring process. We want to make sure that when we do bring in a new boss, that the new boss is a servant leader, someone who embraces Agile values and won't disrupt the progress that we've already made. Now the other 9 items we'll talk about will help you see how to get there. Number 9, slow progress in transformation. It can be really tough to persist through a really tough change initiative like an Agile transformation. So we need to have some way to get some measurable success early. So the best way to do this is to focus on generating some quick wins. Those quick wins can be helped through having a small starting point, a smaller number of teams. We probably also want to provide significant training and coaching for that starting point so that those teams can get off to the right start and that we can have some measurable success in the short term. One of the reasons we might have slow progress is because of technical debt. And there's no overnight answer to this, but we need to adopt disciplined practices in software. That means XP, continuous integration, refactoring, test-driven development. We need to work through that technical debt one bite at a time. Practices without principles. Some teams just adopt blindly a set of practices without really understanding the values and the principles behind those. So in order to overcome that, we need a team that makes values and principles front and center, that clearly defines what their values are, makes those highly visible, revisits those values on a regular basis, and assesses how well they're doing against those values. And finally, that we have a clear mindset of continuous improvement. That's the number one goal in Agile. Another barrier to Agile adoption, adopting in a silo. That we figure Agile just means changes in one part of the organization, like development. Well, clearly to succeed, we need to move beyond those narrow silos. So how can we move beyond those silos? We need to take more of a lean, holistic approach and look at our entire value chain. We need to try to optimize that whole value chain. This might involve sales, marketing, customer support, HR. Look at where our opportunities for improvement are. They're not always going to be within our development organization. Another big one, number 5, the culture clash. A lot of organizations start off with a pretty strong command-based culture. That doesn't tend to work as well with Agile methods. So we need to look at the difficulties of overcoming the culture clash that's built into the organization. Again, not an easy thing to do. One tool that can help comes from a book called the Oz Principle. The results pyramid starts with experiences. We need leaders who will create experiences that will change people's beliefs. That in turn changes actions, and finally that leads to better results. Another problem, weak change strategy. Sometimes the strategy is very one-dimensional. It's all about going faster, maybe it's all about cutting costs. We need a multi-dimensional, holistic strategy for how to sustain an Agile change. That strategy should involve clear metrics, measurable business objectives that we're trying to achieve, because our goal is not to be Agile, it's to improve business results. It should include, again, multiple dimensions like quality, speed, employee engagement, customer satisfaction, the people who pay our bills. All right, moving on to number 3, no critical mass of support. In order for Agile to stick, we need to reach that tipping point where we have most of the people in the organization pulling for the change. If we feel like we're continually fighting against the skeptics, fighting against those who are resisting things, really hard to make change. Some ways we can do that: have a clear vision, communicate it. Not just once, not just twice, but repeatedly, visibly. Second of all, going back to our short-term wins, we need some successes in the short term to create some momentum, break down some of the resistance that we're likely to experience. Number 2, lack of executive commitment. Many times we get executives who voice their support for our Agile transformation, but they don't walk the walk. So how can we change that level of commitment, help the executives understand what they're really committing to? Number 1, we need to have an urgency around the change. What is it that's driving us to make some changes? Why is it urgent for us to make these changes now as opposed to later? We need our executives to understand that it's going to be a long journey and that we need their active participation, not just passive support for what they're doing. Number 1, overburden. Every organization seems to bite off more than it can chew. And it's important that we avoid this trap. We need to balance demand with capacity. This requires having a clear focus within an organization, establishing priorities at the portfolio level so we're not taking on too many projects. One of my favorite phrases: we need to stop starting and start finishing. If you've got 50 projects going today, you should probably try to cut that number down to 10. Thank you for your support. Again, this has been Brad Swanson with Agile 42.